What's up, Outliers? Welcome back to the Outlier podcast. We're back with a familiar face, Tom Sosnoff, and we actually just spoke not that long ago. And then you did a rope and dope on me. We literally talked on like a Monday or Tuesday, and then Wednesday, some big news comes out that you are making your departure and starting to look at something new. So then I reached out and I was just like, all right. Well, now I got to talk to you again and understand what's going on. So, welcome back. Thanks for joining on a pretty short cadence, but I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to be back. Happy to spread the word, spread the love. What do we got?
Let's do exactly that. I think a lot of us, when we heard that you were leaving Tasty Live, obviously most people are completely shocked. And it's because you've obviously built your whole life around markets, doing that whole thing. I think sometimes people forget that you're a serial entrepreneur, did the whole think or swim thing, then made a jump and did something else. And this is kind of part of your broader MO. But I think a lot of us got lulled into a false sense of security and the news drops. So talk to us about that. What led to the switch? And can you explain a little bit about the timing? Why then?
Um, sure, because so I am definitely an entrepreneur. I'm a little bit of a psycho in that sense. Um, for the last 44 years, I have worked, essentially for myself. I have uh, eaten what I've killed, basically. The only two times I've ever received a paycheck in 44 years were, well, right when I got out of college, I had a job for about 6 months, but that doesn't count. Um, when we got bought out by TD Ameritrade, and then when we got bought out by IG, only times I've ever received a paycheck.
Decent
And
paychecks, though.
yeah, but not something that I'm used to, or whatever. It didn't register with me. At TD, I didn't cash a check for 2 years until they basically said, you got to cash these checks, they're not going to be good anymore. And at IG, I cashed a check, but I have no idea what they even paid me. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know. I swear to God, I don't know. Um, so I've been pretty much on my own. I still consider it, and always being on my own. And after you get bought out, you lose control, and it's kind of a weird thing. When we got bought out the first time by TD, I stayed on for 2 years because I just, I was, I had agreed to stay on for 3 years, but I was very close to the CEO, Fred Tomzak at the time, and after 2 years, I went to him and said, Fred, am I ever going to be the CEO of TD Ameritrade? And he looked at me and he said, not over my dead body. And so we laughed about it, and I said, listen, I got to do something else. And because I'm getting older, I got to build some stuff. And he's like, I'm surprised it took you this long. He goes, I'm shocked you're still here. He goes, you could stay as long as you want, but and they were paying me a lot of money and do whatever. But I just was like, I want to go on and build something. And so he goes, what do you want to build? And I go, I want to build this company called Tasty Trade. He goes, oh my God, I hate that name. Worse than Thinkorswim. And I'm like, well, Thinkorswim worked out pretty good for you. And he goes, yeah, it did. So I go, and he said, what is it going to be? And I said, well, we're going to build this network. And at the time, there was no such thing as streaming.
Okay.
So I said, it's a streaming network, and he's like, what is a streaming network? And I'm like, we're going to talk about markets, and we're going to talk about trading. We're going to talk about math and quantitative stuff. And he goes, none of that makes any sense to me, but whatever you do, I want in. And so I go, okay. So he goes, how much? I go, well, I'll put up my money and you got to put up some money. He goes, I'll put up 20 million. Okay, which is a lot for an idea. And I go, all right, that's more than fair. And he didn't know anything. He hated the name, he hated the idea. And he's like, but I'm betting on you because whatever
Right.
you do, I think it's going to work. So I'm like, okay, well, I was going ahead. We put up the money. They put up a portion of their money at the time. And then I quickly realized I didn't want any more of their money because I didn't need their money. I didn't want it, but it was very nice and generous. And we cut a marketing deal with them and we went ahead and built Tasty and it became, crazy successful over the next, 10 years. And I kind of had this old, do you remember Theo Epstein, who was he was the GM of the Boston Red Sox, took them to the World Series,
Okay.
and then twice. And then he was the GM of the Cubs and took the Cubs to the World Series. Um, so he's a very successful GM. And he always used to say, they said, "Why'd you leave the Red Sox?" And he goes, "Well, after 10 years, it was just time." So after 12 years at Thinkorswim, and then it was 14, almost 15 years at Tasty. We started in 2000, end of 2010 till the middle of or end of 2025. And we sold the company in 2021. And I lasted 4 years after we sold because I love what I do. I loved talking about markets. I loved the whole Tasty Nation. I loved everything about it. But I no longer had a seat at the table because I didn't want one. I was the largest shareholder of the company in a publicly traded company in the UK, but I was the largest shareholder, but I didn't want to, had no say anymore. I didn't want to say. I didn't, if I wasn't going to, I tried to run the company at one point. I went to the board at IG and I said, I think I should run this company because I'm a better CEO than the people that you have. And and I understand this business better than anybody at this company. And you guys have been stuck in the mud for 40 some odd years. Let me run the company and let me take it global.
But they love
And
that.
the same thing that TD Ameritrade said to me, which is go pound sand. um, which, I mean, obviously everybody's entitled to that. Um, they go, we want your company, but we don't want you to run it. We don't want you to run this whole thing. I'm like, okay, just wanted to make sure we understood. And I made a pretty passionate case for it. To move to London, I wanted to run the whole thing globally. They said no. I said, fine. Well, then I don't want to run the US anymore. I just want to do my thing. And they're like, okay, that's fine. So 4 years into the deal, I decided it's time. I can finally sell some stock. I decided it's time for me to move on. I have nothing but great things to say about Tasty. It's an amazing company. It's probably the best brokerage firm on the planet. Um, you know, I still use the platform, 50 to 100 times a day, and the people there are awesome. But it was just time for me to go out on my own terms. So to answer your question, the long form, it was just time for me to go out on my own terms. And I had an idea I've been working on for a couple of years, and it was time for me to go and take over a new company that I'm the lead investor in, or one of the lead investors, but I had never run the company until 2 or 3 weeks ago.
When you made the choice to sell Tasty to IG, I have to imagine you didn't really need the money. In that
No,
scenario, you
no, no, no.
probably knew that you were giving up control, which
Yes.
you didn't like in Thinkorswim. So walk me through that logic.
Well, you're going to give up control when you sell,
Right.
obviously. But the logic is when you make a decision that you're going to consider selling for somehow, and I can't explain how. When we decided that we were going to sell Thinkorswim, there were three companies willing to pay cash for it. It was very popular. And it was in the middle of the whole financial meltdown, and everybody wanted to pay cash. So I knew we had a great company. When we wanted to sell Tasty, or when we at least started talking to one firm, there were five companies that came out to buy Tasty. And so five different companies, all, cash and stock, the whole deal. And we just felt like, you know, when you've been doing something in the same space for 40 some odd years, I know it's really cool to take it to the very end, but it's also really cool to have to put a winner on the board, have a really good legacy, to do multiple unicorns, and then to go try to do it again, something different. And I think all of us had this idea where, you know, it was a great trade, it was a great win, it was an amazing company, and we all, like Scott and I and Christy and Woody, we all love building stuff. We had the same team that built both Thinkorswim and Tasty. Scott and I have actually been partners since the late 80s. And we built three companies together. The first one was a prop trading firm, but Christy and I and Woody and I have built Thinkorswim and Tasty together. So we've all been together for a long time, and we love building stuff. Running stuff for other people, not our thing. Even though, they left us alone because
Sure.
the company's worth double what they paid for it now. It's an amazing company, but it was time to just do something different. So the thought process is nothing more than, you know what? We had a great run, and it's time for us to do more stuff. Like, you have to think about it two ways. Either you stay in and you try to make, some more money, of course, or you try to challenge yourself to do something else, which is crazy. And that's what we all decided to do.
It also seems like you're getting to the point of your work where like you're starting to focus a little bit more on like I don't want to call it like social issues, but things that you care about, whether it's social issue,
Sure.
markets, whatever. Because you could also see that in your writing, right?
Sure.
Like over the
Well,
last couple of years,
I'm opinionated.
which
So
is
I
fine.
feel like there are certain I um I understand, you know, the whole I understand the whole Republicans buy sneakers too, going back to the Jordan era, when he was asked about that. And I understand the Barkley, not political. This is, I'm an athlete, not a politician. I get all that. And I'm a trader. And I have always been markets and trading first. And I have always been indifferent to the size of somebody's account, the amount of money they have, the way they trade. I am, I treat everybody the same, whether you have $100 in your account or you have 100 million. It doesn't matter to me. But I think there are certain things in the world that do matter to me. I grew up my dad was a civil rights attorney. My grandparents were very political growing up in the 60s and late 60s and early 70s. It was the time of, all the Vietnam War protests and all the marches on Washington, and it had an impact on me. And I think that it's okay to say, when you're writing stuff, to talk about things that matter to you. I think it's okay. And I don't really care what that means. Like there's a lot of people that go, I hate his politics. I love his trading. I love what he does. I hate sometimes what he says. But 98% of what I do and what I talk about is trading. I think it's okay to mix things up. And I think people that have a voice need to speak up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's fun. And I am one of these people that believe in how important discourse is, how important it is to embrace certain arguments and to have certain discussions. And I think it's healthy. And I don't know. I'll leave it there. I think
I
I've
think it makes
earned that.
sense.
I've
Yeah,
earned
yeah.
it. That's all.
I
I've
think so
earned
too.
the right to say whatever the fuck I want to say. And I'm not obnoxious about it.
Sure.
I'm not in somebody's face. I'm just like, hey, this seems wrong to me. This seems really wrong to me. This seems right to me. I don't know. That's it.
I think it's good. Like, I genuinely think it's good. I know I definitely have had people talk, even on some of our podcasts, where they don't necessarily love some of the political stuff, but
Sure,
I
of
think,
course.
which is always going to be the case. But I think more importantly than that is the point that you highlight just on exchange of information and ideas. I think that you probably come across all the time stuff you like, don't like, but you can still listen to it, digest it, appreciate the point of view, and then continue on your day.
Yeah, I really only do for the last 10 years, I've done one podcast weekly with Dylan Radigan called Truth or Skepticism, which
Mhm.
sometimes we cover topics that are just, we like to debate back and forth. So somebody has to take the other side of everything.
Right.
But Dylan and I, Dylan's incredibly bright and he's super interesting guy and he's great, he has great debate skills. And I love, getting into it with him on just a million different topics. Sometimes it gets political, but other than that, we're pretty much, you know, we're pretty much we stay away from too many controversial topics. But I'm now not getting into that either. I'm not turning my new gig into a political show at all. I'm going after something I think that everybody will embrace, which is worker fairness. I don't think there's a single person, or at least I hope there's not a single person in America that is opposed to worker fairness. I don't see how that's I don't see how that's you know, a blue-red debate. I just don't get it. I don't imagine it can be. I mean, everybody wants to be treated fairly. And I think the traditional methods of what we call kind of worker fairness are outdated. Like a social safety net is outdated. Minimum wage, as important as it is not a solution. And so there's things like that. Equal opportunity is not the answer. It's education. And education is really tough when it comes to, wage disparity, income inequality. And I think that that's a topic that I can't imagine there's anybody that's opposed to making more money. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. So I'm not making this political at all.
Right. Before we talk about Lost Dog and One Lucky Dog, I want to ask you one more question about
Sure.
Tasty to button that side up. Specifically, I want you to, and I'm sure you have already, but I want you to reflect on what it is, what you built. And I have two questions. The first thing is, what is one piece that you've been pleasantly surprised? And what is one thing that you wanted to do that you never got to?
Well, the one thing I'm sorry for my voice, like just getting over a cold, so my voice is a
You
little
sound
strange.
great.
The one thing that I'm really happy about is that our mission over the last 25 years was worked, and that was accepted, and people engaged in it. So, 25 years ago when we decided to build Thinkorswim, people were like, Tom, nobody trades options. Nobody trades. And this makes no sense what you guys are building. And when we started to build Tasty, people were like, nobody wants to listen to you guys talk about markets and talk about math and statistics and probabilistic analysis. They're like, nobody wants that crap. And we're like, and I would always look at people and think, you know, like, why would I ever listen to you? Like I may go down in flames, but I'm don't give a flying fuck what you say. There was a writer that came out, we built Thinkorswim, and she wrote an article in Cranes, and she said, new Chicago company raises $22.5 million, and it's called Thinkorswim. Doomed to fail because of that name. Worst name ever. Thinkorswim outlasted virtually every other brokerage firm in the world. Like there's 50 brokerage firms that have been bought out or sold. And even today, Thinkorswim still lives as part of Charles Schwab's primary platform.
I
It's
use it every
crazy.
day.
And then when we built Tasty, a bunch of different people from like CNBC. I got a call from the executive producer at CNBC. They're like, Tom, you guys cannot pull this off. This is not you're not built for this. This is not your thing. And I got a call from a writer, a columnist at the Wall Street Journal. He's like, what the hell are you doing? Nobody watches digital, streaming networks. And what are you guys going to possibly talk about? Nobody cares about, trading, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, like I don't listen to that crap. So the fact that what we built was engaging, that it worked, that's the coolest part. The negative part is that I really was hoping with the deal I did in 2021 with IG that I could take the platform global and, really kind of change the whole I feel like we've changed so much of trading over the last 25 years between both those platforms and between the Tasty, network. But I don't feel like we made. I feel like it was more difficult to go global than I thought. And although we have hundreds of thousands of people from all around the world, and people watching from 180 countries, people trading from 80 different countries, we still didn't make the global impact that I would have liked to. It's a lot harder than you think. So maybe that's the one negative. On the positive side, was all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting to hear the thought process too. You said something that I want to double click on because I just want to get your thoughts. You share a similar way that I've thought about it, which is just kind of like focusing on what you think is right versus the external inputs. But I do find, as obviously you know better than most people, that as people tend to grow, your footprint grows, what you're working on grows, your brand grows, that there really is no shortage of critics. And it always seems frequently that critics really don't necessarily have like some sort of great pedigree behind them to even start criticizing. And it feels like a lot of times critics come at it just to like tear an idea down versus like trying to give like constructive criticism. Obviously, you've developed a way of handling critics, but what's been the way that you typically manage that over time? Because, I mean, realistically, a trading platform called Tasty Trade is random. Like, objectively, it's random, but
Sure.
it's worked. So you were able to like see through that criticism. But my guess is you probably have some thought partners that you do let in. But I'd like to hear more about that balance between external criticisms, but integrating like good ideas.
You know, I spent 20 years on the trading floor in a pit with 400 sweaty guys that would, that would lean on you, spit on you, not intentionally,
Sure.
scream in your ear, tell the same story over and over 40,000 times, bitch about every single thing that was going on in the world that affected them, tell you about every losing trade they ever made. You couldn't hurt me. Like I got to the point where I'm able to block out virtually all the noise because at some point, the only way you can be a successful floor trader back in the day was you were able to kind of not listen to everything that was being said around you, but you could pay attention to like where the order flow was coming, where brokers were screaming. That really carried over the fast decision making and the ability to block out all the negative noise, you know, all the people bitching at you, and you have to think about this on the trading floor. It was like everybody wanted to steal every single thing that you had. They didn't care if you walked out of that pit naked and broke every single day. And I did it for 20 years. And so you get to the point where you're like, the guy standing next to me is one of my best friends. And yet he'll take every dime I have if he could. That at some point, I learned how the world operates. And I'm very comfortable in that environment. I don't care about, how they always tell athletes, don't read your press clippings, like don't read what people write about you. Well, in the world of social media, I don't read what people write about me, good or bad, but I know it's 98% good. And the people that is bad, whatever. That's who cares. I don't even care. They don't matter to me. I don't give a shit about them at all. I care about all the people that care about me. I don't care about the people that don't. And I think it's just a numbers game. I mean, if you can think about if you were a politician and you had a 98% approval rating, they'd consider you the greatest politician of all time. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, a very public entrepreneur with probably a 95 or 98% approval rating. I'm pretty happy with that. I don't think there's anybody else in the world that gets that. So I have nothing to be ashamed of or nothing to be sad about. I mean, there are plenty of people over the years that have written me to say things like, you suck. I hope you die, like all this stuff. But
Real nice stuff.
it doesn't even remotely affect me. And there's other people that go, your brokerage stinks. You guys are the worst. You know, I didn't get a response. And my answer is always the same. I go, name me one other CEO of a online brokerage firm. Just name me one. You can't even name one. And if you could name one, go write them an email and see if you get a response. Okay. And then write back to me and apologize and say, hey, I'm so sorry, because I will write to you. And you wouldn't believe how many times people have written back and said, okay, you win. You're right. Nobody else will ever write back to me. And I take it back. Because at that point, at some point, if you stay really negative, we'll just fire you. You can't be our customer. We have a right not to serve. But we rarely do that.
That's pretty awesome. And it reminds me a while back when you were explaining some of your email habits, which seemed insane. But
Insane.
the fact that you are so passionate about communicating with customers, but then industry, it's a little bit different where you're kind of like, yeah, whatever. Don't really care.
Well, it's funny. I have no tolerance for people that don't respond and they tell me they're too busy. Like, somebody like a CEO or something that doesn't respond to me. I wrote an email the other day to a CEO. I'm not going to tell you,
Sure.
but because we were having a conversation, and he took him a week to get back to me, a week. And I know him. So in a week later, he wrote back to me and I said, I thought you ghosted me. That pissed me off. And he goes, because I didn't ghost you. I was so busy. I didn't have a chance. I go, you didn't have a chance to what? Tell me you were busy so you get back to me in a couple of days. Like in the trading world, I can understand some other world, but in the trading world, if you don't get back instantaneously, you're not worthy. You are not, I will not accept that. Like if you work for me, I can tell you this right now. If you send me an email and it gets intercepted by Brittany, who's my assistant, works for me. If you don't get a response back in 30 seconds, I'll be shocked. Just tell me, have you ever waited more than a minute for her to get back to you?
No, she's quick. She's super quick.
I'm telling you, a minute. It tops. There's no excuse. I don't care where she is in the world. She'll be back to you in 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, that's how we operate. I'm the same way with customers. But I'm in inbox zero. So if I have to stay up till 4 a.m, I'm going to respond to every single customer. And they're like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, this is who I am. Okay. That's why we're successful. I don't only respond to CEOs. I respond to customers that don't even have an account with us. I don't even check. I don't care. I'll tell you, I'll respond.
Awesome. So pivoting now to your next thing. Obviously, I guess most people probably had a sneaking suspicion that when it was time for you to make your exit, that there would be something. As soon as I saw that message come out, I immediately said to myself, there will be something very soon, I bet. And as it were, there was. And there's this thing, lost dog, one lucky dog. This seems like actually a pretty significant departure from the last 40 years, because very market centric. This takes a look at some of these issues that you're passionate about. It applies a lot of what you've learned over the last 40 years, but in a new realm. Can you tell us about it?
Well, part of it is that I do have a lot of restrictions on, let's put it this way. I'm probably not going to start another brokerage firm because anybody that, would do anything with me at some point would try to make sure that I don't build another brokerage firm, which is totally fine. I'm cool with that. But you're right. There's nobody that's surprised. Like, my wife said to me, she's like, I'm excited that we're going to be able to travel now and you don't have to, like we can do all this stuff. She goes,
LOL.
she goes, but in the back of my head, I've got this idea that I got this thought that you're probably going to start another business tomorrow, right? And I go, well, we've kind of already started. And yeah, I'm not even, she goes, are you taking a day off? I go, no. Left one day, started the next day. Um, she's like, I'm actually not surprised at all. So, good luck. Didn't even ask me what I was doing. Didn't even say, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, she's like, I never understand what the hell you're doing anyway. So, and you probably don't even know, but you'll figure it out. Um, so I've had this idea for a long time, and we've actually I invested in some people and some ideas a while back to start to build out kind of the foundation for this, but um, I didn't take it over until I left Tasty 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, 3 weeks ago. And Scott and I actually both left and we both took this over. I guess our roles are we're co-CEOs right now. Um, and the company's called Lost Dog. Lost Dog is a play on a poster I saw once when I was doing a live show about a stray cat called Lost Cat. And so I decided I've always loved it. I tried to buy it from the artist. He wouldn't sell it to me, but he sold me like a copy of it. And so I have it hanging up in my coffee shop, which I'm promoting here today because I'm the only person that loses money on every cup of coffee that we sell. But we built some really cool facilities in Chicago. Everybody knows we're a Chicago-based company. We love this city and we want to support this city. And this time we built probably our fifth or sixth, business in Chicago in our build out. And this time it's in kind of near Wrigley. It's just outside of Wrigleyville in a really cool industrial neighborhood. And we built an amazing set to do a streaming show called One Lucky Dog, which is going to start on November 10th. It's going to be every day. Part of it's going to be live, part of it's going to be produced. It is going to talk about business. And Scott and I, and a woman that we've been friends with for about 30 years, who used to work for us for 20 of those years, named Soul. She is going to also help us co-host. And we are going to talk about how to build success. So, and what that means, and how to differentiate yourself, and how to give you context to make yourself more valuable. Here's the basic premise, Eric. Basic premise. Over the course of your lifetime, and virtually everybody else, there is a number that you are underpaid or that you leave on the table because you don't know what you're worth. We figured out that over a 40-year period, the average is between $2 and $3 million that you leave on, which is compounded at just risk-free rates. This has nothing to do with equity, just risk-free rates that most people, virtually everyone, leaves on the table. And the way to narrow the wealth gap in this country, the way to bring true worker fairness is not through subsidies or supported programs or things like that. You can't regulate it in. The way to do it is to educate. The way to do it is through know-how. The way to do it is to close the gap by letting people know what they're worth. It's happened in sports through agents and everybody else, but it's never happened in the real workforce. Nobody knows really. I mean, if you get a job for $100,000, you don't know if that job should be 110 or it should be 120 or should be 90. You have no idea. The companies make it up. Like even at Tasty, when somebody comes in for a job, we always go, I don't know if, will you take this? Like you don't know.
Sure.
So every firm is the same way. You just don't know what you kind of have an idea of what the range is, but nobody really has the statistics. So what we're trying to do is to build a streaming network that will help people to understand what success means. The reason we were successful talking about trading was because we were successful traders, period. Done it for 40 years. It's all we've ever done, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're also been successful business people. I sold two companies for $1 billion. We just sold an exchange that we built for 100 million. We just sold another exchange, two exchanges that we built for 250 million. I mean, I just mentored somebody who's about to put up a huge number for the firm that they built. We have been very successful, which is lucky as hell, but we've done it. So I think we have the credibility and the integrity and the validation to talk to people about success. It's one thing when somebody gets up on a stage and says, I'm going to make you successful, but they've never done shit in their life.
Right.
We have actually practiced what we preach. We've built multiple companies. We've sold them for hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. And it's all real. Like there's none of it's all real. And we want to share this with everybody. It's goodwill. That's what One Lucky Dog is. That's starting November 10th. But you have to have something behind it. You have to have a revenue model. You have to build something where there's a business. And the business that we built is a platform that actually tells you what you're worth. So every person can go on, you can upload your resume, you can fill it in by hand, whatever you want to do. And we will show you what the industry average is for that job, what you're worth based on it's a massive AI platform based on everything that's pumped in there, all government statistics and everything. And then we'll show you what you should strive for. And then we'll show you what difference that makes between over the course of your lifetime. And then we'll update you every 2 weeks and give you an idea of how you're doing. And then we built a real-time data feed for jobs. So instead of stock quotes, it's job quotes. And it ticks in real time. It's super cool. Never been built before. And on top of that, we'll give you all the analytics to make you more valuable. The more information you give us, the more information we give you makes you more valuable. It's a subscription-based model. It's cheap. It's $100 a year. It's nothing. And for what it does, there's nothing like it in the world. But it doesn't end there. On top of all that, we're building a digital ecosystem that will allow people to purchase a stable coin, to get I don't want to give away the whole thing, but to get a bonus in what we're building, and also to be able to do different kinds of tokenized investments over time. It's a really interesting ecosystem because we want people to be able to take this newfound wealth and to invest in something that has an equity stake, because we believe that equity compounds way faster than risk-free rates. I mean, it's proven 1,000 times over. So we want people to learn how to, make themselves more valuable. And then when you make yourself more valuable, add to that with some long-term equity commitments and do it through a new age of tokenization and globalization. It's an ambitious project, but it's a very broad reach. And I can throw out a much wider net. I can get to all these people I've never gotten to before. And I can introduce them to who we are, to what we do, to kind of, people like the way we communicate and make very complex things simple. And I think that that's what our strength is. And we're going to take that forward.
Fascinating. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
There is. I have a couple key questions. The first one that jumps to mind, though, is how the fuck did you come up with this?
I'm a nut. Okay.
Know that.
I love building stuff. And this is my own, I'm still partners with Scott, but Scott is a great partner to have because he executes.
Right.
Like he's operational, he executes. I'm always tasked with the vision and the and kind of the vision and the ideas, the creativity of it all.
Mhm.
And then we like to surround ourselves with really smart developers, AI experts, quants, um, and we just start building it and see what happens. And that's what we've been doing. And we've been doing it for a while now. We're super excited. We're bootstrapping it. We haven't raised any money. We don't need to right now. Um, we will at some point down the road. And it's we want to get our we want to get all our viewers, fans, we want to get everybody involved. We want to make it an offer that nobody can refuse. Because we'd like to share. We're generous. And it's important to us. So we're going to build something that's never been built before, and we're going to tackle a social issue that's I don't think anybody's ever effectively tackled.
Next question. I've always been genuinely interested in the economics of this, and
Okay.
this is at least part of what you're addressing here. It's hard for me sometimes to understand. I definitely believe in capitalism, and things that do well should continue to grow and things like that. But one of the things I genuinely do question and struggle with a little bit is like when you see some CEOs that are getting, tens of millions,
Sure.
and then you have like some base level employees, understanding not every employee is contributing the same amount, but it just seems like a hell of a disparity at points between like the physical doers of most businesses versus the people that do a good job, admittedly climb to the top. Has that paradigm like entered your brain? I imagine in some way
Oh
it
my
must
God.
have, but
Oh my God. So one of the things that one of the things that we plan to do is share some of our equity with our viewers. The other thing that we're going to make really clear is that Scott and I won't take a dime, because one of the things that pisses us off the most is when somebody like, you know, like the CEO of Citigroup gets
sure.
$300 million. The CEO of Goldman Sachs gets $300 million. And the lowest paid employee gets 65,000. You know, and those numbers, the multiples are insane, insane. Um, we don't like businesses. That's not a business to me. There's so many things that are wrong. There's nothing wrong with free markets. There's nothing wrong
Sure.
with capitalism. But I'm sorry, but no CEO is worth $300 million.
Right.
I know these CEOs. Most of them, they're not worth $3, let alone $300 million. And you get in situations where like, Elon Musk just got a pay package for $1 trillion if he does something right, whatever. He's got to hit crazy numbers, but $1 trillion. We've gotten stupid with this stuff. Like the average CEO made what, like, I mean, of a major company made what, 16 to $20 million last year. I mean, these numbers are insane, insane. And I'm telling you that my own experience with all these CEOs in my entire lifetime of dealing with all these public companies, I have met two CEOs, two that I would hire. This is out of hundreds. I've met two. These people were paid hundreds of millions of dollars. I have met two that I would hire. So it's complete garbage. So what Scott and I are saying is we're going to build Lost Dog. We're not taking a dime. Now, we're lucky. We're in a position we don't have to, but
Sure.
we're not taking a dime. So the employees, whatever, everybody gets everything else. We're not taking anything. That's number one. You have to lead by example. And we are. So that's one of the ways that we're addressing this, is saying, you know what? We're going to build this amazing company. We're going to talk about, you know, um, wealth, wealth equality and narrowing the wealth gap, but we're not going to take any money, so nobody can ever say, hey,
Right. These guys are
you
part of the
did this
problem. Yeah.
just to enrich yourself. No, we didn't. If in the end the company's worth some money, great. The investors will, you take a lot of risk when you build a startup, and you deserve to be rewarded if you're successful. But in the interim, we're not taking a dime. And
Super cool.
that's cool. That's how we're addressing that issue. But that issue is a big part of what this show's about.
Interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really stoked on that. I spent some time at Deloitte as a consultant, and some of the projects that I worked on effectively were around this kind of idea for a business. Like, what is the lowest we can possibly pay people that are coming in?
Sure.
And that always felt weird because they're paying us a ridiculous amount of money for what we do. And yet I'm sitting here like advising them on how to create this pay package where if they include a flexible Friday, they can decrease their annual pay by this much. It's insane.
And
So
at the same time, they don't say that same thing. What's the cheapest we can get this CEO for? Like, that's
right.
not, they don't say that.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, two other quick questions. When you envision the company, I imagine you had to have thought of something like Glassdoor, which has pieces of this,
No,
where it shows really because like Glassdoor will show like the average salary for like a specific title at a specific company, like that kind of stuff. But it seems like you guys took that a step further, or just even without agnostic of that. And you're approaching the problem from a W 2 perspective, which is interesting to me. I always envision you as like the entrepreneur guy. And I actually thought what your next move is going to be is more focused on like business startups and stuff. Talk to me about this.
there's a lot of focus on differentiating yourself through business startups and all that kind of
Got
stuff.
it.
But the majority of people don't work for business. I mean, the majority of the people
Right.
are not doing business startups. And I want to appeal. If you're just appealing to business startups, your audience is limited. I want to help I want to have the opportunity to get in front of everybody.
Got it. Yeah, it makes complete sense. That the thing I find super cool about this too is that group of people, realistically speaking, is the one that kind of needs it the most, because a lot of those people are the ones that end up with not necessarily golden handcuffs, maybe like rusted handcuffs, that like everything's like just good enough, and that's how most of them end up living most of their lives. So I can actually see like a really cool potential impact from this. If you were to think about like the broad industry impact of something like this, what do you think that this will do to like hiring, to interview process? What do you think there?
I think that I think giving people context is the most powerful thing you can do. And I don't think it's been done before. Looking at a range of salary on Glassdoor doesn't mean anything to me. Um, but having somebody break down my resume with respect to what I'm going for gives me lots of very um, gives me so much quantitative information that I can use, that it does help in the negotiation process. When some kid comes in, remember, I think over the last 25 years, we've hired, let's just say 1,000 people. It's probably more. But I mean, Casey has 330 people right now, and Thinkorswim had 550. So that's without even any turnover. It's like 900. Um, so it's well over 1,000. And a lot of times, you know, what we pay people and what they ask for and all this kind of stuff it's what's taken into consideration is not necessarily the real market. Like you make a judgment based on who the person, like what their experience is. You make a judgment based on what you can afford to pay, not necessarily what the market will, not
Right.
necessarily what the market is. You make a judgment based on how bad does that person need that job, or are they willing to take less? Like there's a lot of factors. Um, Very few people some people get more than they're worth. Very few people get what they're worth. And I think just having some numbers on it. Here, I'll make it easier. Before you go in to buy a used car or a car, you might go to Kelley Blue Book, and you might you know, um, you might just download a page of the car that you want to buy, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what the price would be, especially on a used car. But in real estate, they do it with comps. You have a pretty good idea
Mhm.
what the comps are to this neighborhood. In jobs, you don't have any of that. There's none of that. What we're doing is we're giving you that information to help you. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to use it. Some places will go say, "Hey, screw that. We're not." That's what they say, but that's not the real market. I understand that, but that's what Zillow did. But there's way more than that than just being Zillow or Kelly Blue Book. I want to empower you through the content that we create, through the analytics that we build, through the AI tools and the mechanisms that we've built, because they're so different. They're so purposeful. And, you know, giving you information, it cannot hurt you. It can only make you more valuable. I mean, for $10 a month or $100 a year, if I can get you a few extra $1,000 or a few $1 million over your lifetime, who wouldn't do that?
Right. Yeah. No, it's
And
awesome.
it
I love
also,
that.
it also gives you, we're going to give you a live quote stream so you can see what jobs are in other cities. You can see what it's worth. You can make decisions for yourself. Hey, you know, you're entitled to that. You can go get the best market for yourself.
I think one of the coolest things about this that strikes me is it starts to break away that whole taboo that companies have been so successful in, which is making it really awkward and weird to talk about what you make at a place so that nobody ever knows what anybody else makes. And it creates this really difficult negotiation landscape where you can have these insane gaps between people.
What's funny about that is we've talked about this a lot. What's funny is that my generation, boomers, nobody ever talks about what you make. It's totally taboo. Nobody talks about it. But the current generation, 25-year-olds, they all talk. They'll post
Good.
it. They all talk about everything. They'll put their pay stubs up there. So they're much more open about it. It's kind of a LinkedIn mentality. It's, you know, um, it is a slightly different mentality. I'm not going to try to break any of that up. I just want to, like, I think that there are certain sites out. I'm not interested in finding people jobs because that's outside of
Sure.
my interest level. But there are, like, if you go to LinkedIn and stuff like that, these are massive sites with 1 billion people, right? But I'm not sure they give you information, but they don't give you know-how. And I feel like know-how is 40 years of, what we've learned. Like I could say, make the same argument for trading. Everybody gives you information, fundamental, technical analysis, all this other crap. But until we came along and started talking about trading, nobody's ever given you actual trading information. We changed the whole industry and it exploded based on the information we gave about trading and the know-how we put out there. It never existed before. What if you do the same thing for jobs? Like, I don't know if I've got that in me. Like, I don't know if I can pull it off. But, like it's gonna be fun. We're gonna die trying. It's gonna be fun. Um, Scott and I have a good time with this. If it's successful, we'll bring on a lot more people. We'll have a lot more fun. We have a super cool set in Chicago. If you ever get to Chicago, I'll show you. It's really cool. We have a giant stage. We built out a super cool set. It's going to be a really amazing, network. It's going to be fun.
Is this the same neighborhood where you were showing your wife your new pad and then there was the store that was getting robbed, or is this in a different
No,
location?
no, no, no.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
this is a different neighborhood.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
important. Or were there at least squatters in there when you came in?
no, there was
No
no.
squatters either. Man, you really big
This was just an
departure.
old vacant warehouse, and we just gutted it and built up everything. We've been
You
working on
really
it for a couple of years. So,
well, you lose the bray and you turn a new leaf. I thought for sure that there would be some artifacts of your old purchases in there. Now,
oh, there's if you come to our coffee shop, there's there's a little tributes on the wall to all the businesses that we built. We have some
oh,
fun
that's
with that.
fun.
Um, that's it. You know
So,
what? We move on. You just gotta like. I walk out the door. and then I start next thing right away.
It's cool. It's, I mean, I've said this to you before, and I know it's uncomfortable for you, but I always have to say it. Like, you do inspire a lot of people, and it's super cool what you do. So, to that end, I'll keep it brief, say thank you there. Now, folks, they can sign up for your wait list on lostdog.com.
Yes.
And then you're going live on 10 November with One Lucky Dog.
That's just the network. The software, what you're signing up for is actually One Lucky Dog's free. And you can watch it on YouTube or on our site, whatever.
Got it.
But when we go live with the software, it'll be late November, assuming everything comes out right. It'll be late November, and then you'll get a bunch of emails before that.
Got it. Yeah. So I'll throw links to all that stuff in there. There's just one final question. Obviously, the beret is gone, but does that mean that you're not trading anymore, or how?
No, I'll tell you right now, absolutely not. Today, I made 77 trades.
Slow day.
Slow day. Yes. So no, I'm absolutely trading. I think 77 trades today. I was all over the place. I've been short gold for a while, and it finally went down today. So, and same with silver. That's been a painful ride. But finally we got paid today in gold and silver. Gold down 220 and silver down 320. But now I just need the market to sell off a little bit. So we got to get paid there because we're a little bit short the S&Ps and NASDAQ. So we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see how it all lines up for you, Tom. Always
I'm
awesome.
never going to stop trading, by the way. That's what I do. I love it. Never stopping.
That was more of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, because it's been pretty clear that, like, you if there is an addiction, you do have it. And yeah, I don't think there's a rehab for this one, so you're kind of locked in.
Yeah.
But always awesome hanging out, Tom. Thanks for chatting, and looking forward to seeing the next update.
Talk to you soon.